In 108 BC, the Gojoseon nation from Korea attacked the Chinese known as the Han. The Han were too strong, they fought for several years and they defeated the Gojoseon. So they decide to divide the land of Gojoseon into 4 militant groups, Jinbeon, Limdun, Hyeonchugun, and Nakrang. But the citizens managed to escape and migrate to other countries, and others wandered aimlessly without resting. Later they began a resistance movement with their leader Hamosu. So officially the movie begins in Buyeo City, under Hyeonchugun, one of the Gojoseon land. We get to see a fight between two personnels. Well-trained soldiers show off their skills until one is kicked out of the ring. The Han governor's assistant in this region is impressed with his skills, so he orders for Imperial Warrior Sword to permit him to go to the capital Shengyen. At the moment someone comes and requests for a challenge, the champion agrees to duel with him. They begin to fight and both look seniors. They fight until they break the spear sharp end, as it falling to the ground. The man in yellow kicks it and it hits the ambassador to death. We get to see the rebels known as the Damui army surrounding the whole area fighting with Han soldiers. They start rescuing the Gojoseon prisoners who had been captured by the Hans. The Han most dangerous army known as the Iron Army surround the area. The Damui soldiers strikes them with arrows. One of the rebel tries to shoot the remaining leader, but he missed by a slight margin. The Han brings in more soldiers and the Damui leader orders his men to retreat. They ride to the forest and one of them fall off the horse. They realize that he has been cut. We get to know that one in purple is Prince Yuhwa, and one in yellow is General Hamosu, leader of the Damui rebels. The next day in Buyeo City, we see their king known as Buyeo, father to Prince Yuhwa, but he looks to be unwell. His royal subject, Chang-eun, he advised the king not to render any aid to the Gojoseon refugees, that they might be made to suffer a reprisal from Han nation. They take this special conversation inside and Chang-eun continues that the Han Iron Army has passes through the Liaodong, and they moving towards our side in order to prevent the refugees from escaping the Han 4 groups rule. The king informs that what about the ones who have already settled in Buyeo? Chang tells him that they won't discover them because they already attained a Buyeo citizenship. The king suggests that they can fight the Han, but Chang Han informs him that the Han most dangerous army known as the Iron Army utilizes copper spears and body armor to fight wars, so it's impossible to stand with them. We get to see Prince Yuhwa back in the palace. He meets his father. He asks why he came back wounded and Yuhwa lies to him that he fell off from the horse, but unfortunately resulted into his health. But Chang-eun is not pleased with the prince's statement. King Buyeo meets the high priestess, Yomilyu. She tells them that Buyeo's light is vanished by the 3-legged bird. She continues that a 2-legged bird represents your majesty and the crown prince, but now there's another 1-legged bird. It signifies Buyeo's division and end. Back to the Damui army as they plan to attack and steal the Han military supplies. Then someone informs them that clan groups are moving towards Hyeonchugun for a meeting. Hamosu sends his men to spy on their activities. Even Buyeo is part of the meeting and the prince is sent as their representative. He meets a certain girl on his way and Chang-eun informs him that she's from Harbeck clan, and she's known as Yuhwa. As he heads inside he meets his old friend, Yangjing, who joined the Han imperial family's guard. In the meeting, Taisho tells them that whoever manages to capture or kill Hamosu will be bestowed with riches from the Han. He later takes them outside for entertainment. He orders his men to bring the Gojoseon refugees. He gives them a chance that whoever kills the entire Iron Army will be granted his freedom. I like this idea from this fool. These people are not trained, but if one kills the entire Iron Army will be free to go. They give them swords and having nothing to do they just pick them. They try fighting but this is the Han's strongest army and they are slaughtered. Even swords that can't penetrate their armor. They kill all of them leaving no survivor. Back to the Damui army, they train day and night to perfection their skills. They receive swords from Buyeo delivered by Prince Yuhwa. Chang-eun informs the king that 3-legged bird is auspicious sign. It indicates the emergency of a new hero. And that new hero is not other than General Hamosu. Chang continues that Hamosu is dreaming of becoming emperor. So for the sake of Buyeo's future, Chanan suggests that they must get rid of Hamosu. Prince Yuhwa has a family, Lady Ye Soya his wife, and a baby boy, Daiso. She asks him to carry the baby which he refuses. Chanan notices Yuhwa sneaking out of the palace at night. He moves to the bush and informs one rebel to tell General Hamosu to delay the expedition for the time being and he hide immediately. Then at that very moment the messenger is killed by Chanan who followed the prince. He reports him straight to the king. The king furiously informs him that if we go into the battle with the Han, we shall face the same fate as Gojoseon. The king asks Yuhwa what he would choose between Buyeo his kingdom and Hamosu. and Gimwa chooses death instead because he equally loves the two parties. Prince Gimwa rides to the Damui's army camp that night, but only to find that general and his men had already gone to attack to steal the Han's military supplies. They kill the available guards with fire arrows, head down to fight the remaining soldiers, but unfortunately the Iron Army was assigned to be ready to ambush the Damui. As Hamosu is slaughtering the Han soldier, he sees the Iron Army approaching. He tries to strike one, but the arrow just bounces off the armor. Hamosu, run my brother. They start killing his soldiers with their strong unbreakable spears. Hamosu sees that his men are nothing against the Iron Army, so he orders them to retreat. As Hamosu is surrounded by many soldiers, leader of the Iron Army strikes him with a spear and he falls in river. Gimwa is frustrated to hear the news, but he tells them he can't believe that he's dead until he sees his body. Yuhwa from Habek clan sees the body of a man floating on the river heading towards their side. She and her servant pulls the man out and we get to see Hamosu still alive. They boil medicine for him and offers good care to see whether he might recover. At the moment he wakes up, they asked what happened to him, but he seemed not to talk. They take a walk and the lady admits that she likes the famous warrior Hamosu, not knowing that she's with him right there. She accidentally touches his wounded arm and it looks like the wound is still painful. Then at the moment suddenly one of the village soldiers sees them, but he's not much concerned. Suddenly the Iron Army arrives to the village and the village leader sees them, father to Lady Yuhwa. At night they gather all the clan members. They inform them that Hamosu is injured on his left arm. If you get to see his body, dead or alive, report to us immediately. But if you attempt to hide him, all of your heads will fall to the ground. Lady Yuhwa and her servant realize that the man they are taking care of is General Hamosu and they leave immediately. The man who saw Yuhwa and a strange man assumes that he might be General Hamosu. He immediately informed the village leader and they pray that he's not the one. Out of fear they immediately ride their horses to go and inform the Han in order to avoid danger. Yuhwa and the servant runs back immediately and question the man if he's the one known as Hamosu, which he denies. He asks them what's the problem. They inform him that the Iron Army have just left the village, but they warned whoever hides the body of the general, the whole village will be exterminated. She sends the servant out and asks him about his name and he calls himself Li Gansang. The village leader comes back with the Iron Army straight to his daughter's home and they start to search inside only to see nothing. But lucky Hamosu escapes the area that night, back to the Iron Army. They ask the lady what was the name of the individual she helped. She said he was Li Gansang. They asked whether he was injured or not and she replied that he was. Their leader immediately cut her father and orders his men to kill the whole clan. They start killing each and everyone from the Habek clan, men, women, children. No one is spared except Yuhwa, the trouble causer. They take her as a prisoner. Prince Gimwa and the Damui soldiers coincidentally arrives at the scene searching for Hamosu. They get to know that the Iron Army killed everyone here for hiding the general. We get to see some group of merchants traveling to Hyeonchugun city and they decide to rest near the river. Chief of Jerebu clan, their leader, Yuntabal, from Julbun nation, takes some water near a strange man who we know as the general. A lot of people just hear about him, but they don't know his face. He asks him if he's also a refugee, which he agrees. He invites him to have something to eat before he continues to his journey. Yuntabal has a pregnant wife and she's about to give birth. They serve him well with nice big chickens. Oh my, what a moment. Yuntabal talks about the Habek clan as the way they were killed by the Iron Army. Hamosu hears this and feels a moment of guilty. The servant, Jia, continues that the only survivor, Yuhwa, will be taken to Hyeonchugun for public execution. If I was Hamosu, I first eat that innocent chicken before hearing to these stories. Prince Gimwa searching around and he sees Lady Yuhwa captured by the Han Iron Army. So that night he decides to attack them in an attempt to save the lady whom he met in Hyeonchugun city. They attack the Iron Army unprepared. Gimwa frees the lady and they run away, and those who tries to follow up they shoot them. Back to the merchants at night, Yuntabal's wife goes into labor. At the moment of waiting, Chief Yuntabal informs his servant Jia that the guy they found on the way is General Hamosu, and he plans to hand him over to the Han when they reach to Hyeonchugun city in exchange for 100 rolls of silk and ruby stones. Suddenly they are attacked by the bandits. As they try to defend themselves, Yuntabal sees the man who now he knows fighting the bandits who came to steal, when unluckily they faced the bad news of the channel. Yuntabal confirms that he's really grateful. At a very normalized moment, they inform him that his wife has given birth to a baby girl. He moves inside and names her Sono. They reach the Hyeonchugun city, the capital, but after saving his people and the baby from the bandits, Chief Yuntabal decides to let him go. Gimwa takes Yuhwa to Buyeo, the priestess Yomilu. After seeing Yuhwa, she calls for the prince. She asks whether he's look forward to marry a second wife. He admits that he loves her, but the priestess advises him to stay away from her. He rides to the Damui camp and they introduce him to Hamosu, who is still alive. Gimwa informs him that his father already knows about it and wishes to meet him. They head to Buyeo and the king have a private conversation with Hamosu. Hamosu informs the king that uniting all the clans will be their only way to win the battle, and the rest of the clans are willing to join. The king is happy with idea and tells the general that Buyeo will join his army to fight the Han. Later on, Prince Gimwa takes Hamosu to meet Yuhwa. Hamosu kneels and begs her to forgive him, of what she agrees. She tells him that she wants him to win the war against the Han as the way to avenge her people. This motivates him engage in daily training with his men along the Buyeo's few soldiers. Few days pass, the prince is informed that Lady Yuhwa has joined the Damui's army. Her only work is to cook for the soldiers. Yuhwa and Hamosu take some walk in the bushes, where she admits that she's in love with him. Prince Gimwa was aside witnessing and he get to know that he's not the one she love. Gimwa and Hamosu traveled all over the clans requesting them to join a conquest to take down the Han. Some give them the soldier while others supply them with military weapons. One night Hamosu proposes to Yuhwa and puts the ring on her finger. The priestess and Chang'an decide to get rid of three-legged bird whom we know as Hamosu. They inform the idea to the king. Inform the king that even they win the battle, Buyeo will be in trouble. Chang'an continues that a lot of the clans have joined, but it's not under your control. The king informs them that Buyeo's Han controls this conquest. Chang'an tells him that this insurgent is not yours. The king insists that Hamosu only gained permission to be the vanguard. Chang'an continues that all the clans joined them after hearing of Hamosu's involvement, not because of Buyeo or Yu. The priestess confirms it that the alliance of the other clans is under Hamosu's control, not his majesty. Back to Damui's camp, Hamosu is informed about the refugees who run away from the Han nation, so plans to go with some soldiers to save them. Gimwa asks the general to let him do it instead, because Hamosu is the one responsible for leading the big battle against the Han. Gimwa requests permission from his father, who was brainwashed by Chang'an and the priestess. Chan informs the prince that we leave you to go on one clue, which states that, before he leaves, he must visit the priestess, which he agrees. That night Hamosu wait for the prince, but was nowhere to be seen, so he decides to take this back in his hands. In Buyeo, one of the soldier informs Chang'an that they have informed the Han about Hamosu's mission to rescue the refugees. Gimwa arrives at the camp very late when Hamosu and some of the soldiers had already gone. Damui army attacks the Han that night, which we already know is a trap. They start enjoying killing the available few soldiers. At the moment the refugees comes and surround them, which turns out to be the Han soldiers dressed as the refugees. We get to see the Iron Army waiting aside for the perfect moment to attack. They attack and surround the general. They kill his men as he watches, but he can't do anything. It took like 15 Iron Army men to capture Hamosu. Later on Gimwa arrives and the remaining survivor informs him that it was a trap and general is captured. When Gimwa informs the news to Lady Yuhwa, she straight away heads to Hyeon Chugun city. Hamosu is beaten up and even his eyes are removed and will be extradited to Han nation in 3 days' times. In a sad moment Yuhwa informs Gimwa that she's pregnant with Hamosu's child. As a way of convincing her to leave the area, he assures her that he will save him. Chang'an tells Gimwa to abandon the plans of rescuing Hamosu. He continues that the person who set up Hamosu's downfall was his majesty. He made this decision to protect Buyeo, your kingdom, and the crown prince. Jim asked Chang if he had prior knowledge of this, which he agrees. On the day of transferring the general to the Han nation, Prince Gimwa and the Damui army attack the Han soldiers. They throw a tree between them and the Iron Army to buy some time. Gimwa releases the general and put him to a horse and they run. Then the Iron Army manages to remove the tree immediately and start going after them. But unluckily Hamosu's horse take a different path and this splits the two. The Iron Army also divide into two, one to chase Hamosu and the other follows the prince. Hamosu's horse reach the end and it stops. The army arrives at the moment and start shooting him with arrows until he fall off. Prince Gimwa was on the other side, he couldn't do anything. Some long time passed, Yuhwa goes to labor and gives birth to a baby boy. At that very moment the priestess calls for Chan'an. She asks him whether Hamosu died for real. She tells him that the three-legged bird has vanished from Buyeo's son, but instead it should have died because it might fly back again. She continues that it flew away with strength. Prince Gimwa informs Chang'an that Yuhwa has given birth to Hamosu's son, at the moment when the king is ill health. Yuhwa and the boy will be staying outside the palace for now, but after I become the king, she will enter the palace immediately. Chanan gets one of his men in the palace, the general in Buyeo, Jerk Kai. He orders him a special task of killing Hamosu's son and the mother. He immediately head to Yuhwa's home, but to find she has escaped. Lady Yuhwa doesn't want his son to grow as a prince in Buyeo. The Buyeo's general Jerk Kai starts searching for her in the forest. Prince Gimwa visits Lady Yuhwa, but to realize that her servant has been killed. General Jerk Kai sees Lady Yuhwa and asks her why she's moving alone with the child in the mountain. He suggests to guide her on her way, which she denies and move away. General calls her and tells her that he will not let them go. Lady Yuhwa asked him why he's doing this. Jerk Kai tells her that since you're about to die, Hamosu's death was all planned by Buyeo's king, to prevent the Buyeo's destruction at the hands of Hamosu. She asked him whether Gimwa know about this. He tells that the prince doesn't know. As he raised the sword to slash her and the baby, thunder hits him and fall down. Lady Yuhwa moves around and realize she have nowhere to go, so she decide to move back to Buyeo such that her son can avenge for Hamosu. She meets Gimwa and he vow to the heavens to raise this baby as his own son. They decide to name the baby JUMONG. And the movie starts officially. That was just a sample of what you're going to see. 20 years later, Gimwa raised JUMONG as his own son. Gimwa, now the king, continued the campaign in recapturing the Gojoseon lands. He expanded Buyeo's borders through numerous battles. This reached the point where it scared the Han nation. We get to see the crown prince, Daiso, his young brother, Yongpo, and the youngest, JUMONG. They meet their father King Gimwa. They came far from Buyeo to join him in the battle, but JUMONG looks like he doesn't have anything to say. The king asks JUMONG whether his mother Lady Yuhwa were doing well. This annoys the two brothers because the king didn't ask about the queen, mother to both of them. As they prepare to head to the battlefield, JUMONG never learned how to use a sword before. So the elder brother informs him that the king would be disappointed to know this, so we just head to the battle, I will protect you. The next day, they set to battle. The king usually involves in the battles, and this time round he will fight with his 3 sons. The enemies arrive at the battlefield. Buyeo sends their messenger, but these guys came to fight, not to receive messages, so they killed him immediately as a sign to start the war. The king permits Daiso to attack with the army. They attack and our poor JUMONG pulls out the sword as the best warrior of all. The battle begins and Yongpo and Daiso looks well skilled, but King Gimwa is only focused on JUMONG, who is just killing the ghosts. One man pull off JUMONG from the horse and he starts screaming. This act even surprised the man, but Daiso was there and helped him. The king is very disappointed after seeing this madness. Make sure to subscribe such that you don't miss out part 2 of this super action and drama series.